labor. That is our work around real estate fraud, uh, auto fraud, and things like that. So all those kinds of specialized units are housed there in that department. I want to be sure to mention some of the new uh, departments that we put in place since I've been here. We started our conviction integrity unit. We created the first, as many progressive offices around the country have done, the first standalone conviction integrity unit. This unit investigates prior convictions and seeks justice for those who may have been wrongfully convicted. And also, we investigate crimes of or claims, I should say, of actual innocence. And then we sometimes cases come to our attention where there are significant integrity issues in the prosecution, and we will take a look at those as well. I also established a cold case unit. With the advance of technology and DNA evidence, we've been able to solve old unsolved murders through the use of advanced technology and DNA evidence. The Golden State Killer, which you all was in the news for days on end, a few months ago, who had been apprehended after many years of terrorizing up and down the state of California, committing numerous rapes and torture um, and burglaries and all of that, was finally apprehended with the advanced technology of through DNA. So we have established this unit. It works directly with our law enforcement agencies across the county to look at all unsolved murders in Contra Costa County. And then we also have a new unit called for human trafficking. This is a unit that works collaboratively with many agencies in our county. It is a comprehensive approach to combat those who are being exploited in our communities for sex or for labor. We coordinate victim services as well and provide community education and community awareness. So here's some of the new things that we've been able to do. In this time frame, I can only highlight a few, but I'm sure that when we have the question and answer period, it will give me a chance to lift up many, many more. Um, One thing I want to mention is the Vera Institute. We are part of an exclusive. It's a partnership where the Vera Institute helps us to do something we've not done before and is not typical for DA offices. We take a deep dive into our own data and all of our decision making points. It's an exclusive that really is aimed at ending racial and implicit bias in the justice system, and the program focuses us on using data to drive our progressive policies. So we're not, operating on, emotions or anything of that nature. We're actually using the data to see where we have disparate impacts in our community and then reshaping our policies to eliminate those biases and implement new policies for our office. We also have received from the state of California through our work $1 million grant to establish a countywide youth diversion pre-filing program. It's the first diversion countywide program in Contra Costa County in the office's history. We partnered with the Rise Youth Center as well as Impact Justice. We've initiated a restorative justice approach that redirects our youth from the criminal justice system and also reduces that pipeline that leads our kids from school and into our prisons. It lowers recidivism, it reduces racial disparities in our criminal justice system, and gives our kids an opportunity not only to be held accountable, to also have the tools that they need to be successful. And so they are held accountable, and when they successfully complete our program, we do not file the charges. We're still trying very hard to get our neighborhood courts up and running. We've had the funding for this, but the red tape of our HR department in Contra Costa County has kept us from getting our staff in place. But we hope this year that we will get that up and running. It will allow residents like yourself, I'll come back to you as soon as we get the program up, to ask you if you will be volunteers to help us with neighborhood community courts. In its simplest form, we train you to be the arbitrators of small, low level cases that happen in your community. So if somebody, for example, paints the side of a church with graffiti, then three arbitrators, will hear that case and decide, well, what would be justice what would hold that person accountable, and what would make the community whole. Could mean that the person who painted the graffiti has to repaint the church, or for example, they have to volunteer to do that, and so that way the community is made whole, the person is held accountable. But you get to decide small cases like that, and we keep them away from the criminal justice system so that we can use our resources to concentrate on more serious crimes in our community. With mental health, which is another place where we continue to try to improve not only the response from law enforcement, but once cases are in our system, we have now established in Contra Costa County mental health diversion programs. And I'm also going to be working with our community partners to even go further down our pipeline. Most of the cases that we handle are felonies, and we know that we get a lot of times to touch people before they get to that level. So I'm working on trying to get a very so when people first come into the criminal justice system and we see that there are mental health issues, that we have an opportunity to get them into treatment at a very early stage. Let me just mention a couple more things. Code for America, we joined their initiative. We were one of the first 4 counties in California to do so. Once Prop 64 required that certain marijuana cases were no longer crimes, we still had thousands and thousands of cases on our books where people had convictions on their record that shouldn't be there anymore. And so with Code for America, we were able to use their technology to make government work for the people. So their technology went into our system and within a matter of nanoseconds pulled up all of our cases that would have taken us probably years to try to accumulate. So, and then we were able to assist 2,400 individuals who no longer have felony and misdemeanor convictions on their record. That means we have removed the barriers to them getting jobs, getting into school, getting student loans, getting housing, and being productive parts of our society. Um, we also, during the pandemic, which has affected all of us, we have used our partnerships quite well to make sure that, especially in our jails, that we keep those populations low, because the people that work in our jails come home to our communities. And if there's a huge outbreak in our jails, that means there's a huge outbreak in our community. And so we wanted to make sure that people ages over 65, people who had pre-existing conditions, people who only had a small amount of time left on their sentences, everyone that we could safely release and return home to our communities, we did so. That way the jail populations could remain low and we didn't have huge outbreaks here. And the final one, just because it's listed here, we also established a post-conviction resentencing effort as well. We work with a community organization here, as well as with our prison system, to locate those people who have really old and really long sentences that when we look at them today, we would not impose. The law changed in 2019 and gives the DA the chance to go back and look at those old draconian sentences and to recommend to the court that they be resentenced. And so we have participating in that program as well. So I guess I was stopped. Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing that we're doing with youth justice. I do want to mention too that a lot of the low-level offenses, for example, like simple drug possession cases, we're treating them. Uh, we're treating addiction for what it is, addiction, so that in those cases we're not bringing them into the criminal justice system. We're referring them to treatment so that people can get the help that they need, and we don't bring new cases into our criminal justice system. And then on our adult side, we have a robust diversion program so that a lot of low level cases, we're diverting them into programs as opposed to bringing them into the criminal justice system. So I want to take this down because I'm very excited about one other thing that we're doing in our office that I just want to have a quick chance to share with you. Many of you are already partnering with us in this work, and I'm appreciative of your time in this effort as well. But a couple of months ago, there was a proposal before our Board of Supervisors. We have 2 rather secure facilities in Contra Costa County. We have the Boys Ranch, which is the less secure facility, and then we have Juvenile Hall, which is our locked facility. And as you may have heard, the crime rates have been declining, of course, over the years, and so there are fewer and fewer kids in those facilities. The ranch only has about 15 kids in it now. The juvenile hall, which is a 220 bed facility, has about 50 kids in it. So the cost of running those operations is astronomical. We're spending about $550,000 a year per child to house them in these facilities. And when you compare that to the fact that we're only spending in California about 13,000 to educate them, we have to start wondering whether we are doing the best thing for our kids. So I established the Reimagine Youth Justice Work Group because I truly believe this quote: if we're not standing up and trying to figure out what's the best thing that we can do for our kids, then we're really not standing up for much. These are statistics that were published in the Chronicle just in 2019 to expose the racial disparities in the juvenile justice in Contra Costa County. And despite the huge decline in our crime rates, especially with kids, and despite the fact that there is a bipartisan effort for criminal justice reform, Contra Costa County is still lagging. So we are exploring opportunities for our kids in Contra Costa to lead successful and enriching lives of dignity and self determination and opportunity, and looking for solutions that continue to keep our communities safe, but also that have better outcomes for our youth and that are diverting them away from our criminal justice system and into pretrial and away from pretrial detentions. We have an extremely robust table. I'm so pleased about this. Once we announced it, I mean, we have some of everybody at the table, and it is a welcome and open table. When I'm done talking, I will put my office number in the chat for anyone who wants to join this work. We have mental health professionals, we have scholars and educators, medical doctors, we have community representatives, system involved youth. So we have youth at our table who have spent time in our juvenile facilities, as well as their families who are going to lend their voices to our discussion because we will be very community centered. And so we're very excited about this work and the teams that we have incentivized to be a part of it. We've already heard from a community in New York. We heard from the premier expert in our country, really, who helped to close the youth prisons in New York.